For thought leadership chiefs, it's time to decide which programs to continue, which to start from scratch, and maybe which to pull entirely. Is the annual survey on tech trends still worth it? What about the book that's been on your back burner for years, but whose time has come? Or what about the regional seminars that draw droves of people in a few cities, but very few in others? Which programs should we continue, and which should we stop? It's also a good moment to reflect on the roles in your thought leadership group. Do you have all the skills you need to shift thought leadership from a cost center to a revenue producer? I feel I have a strong grasp for what makes for a powerful thought leadership team. I worked for many years in a highly effective thought leadership group at a management consulting firm that turned the word business reengineering into a worldwide phenomenon. I have also consulted to companies about their thought leadership groups for the last 25 years and helped them develop content. So what makes for a powerful thought leadership team? The kind of team that drives market share, leads, and recognition in your industry. I see 10 key roles that firms must master if they want to use thought leadership as an engine for revenue expansion and service innovation. Welcome to the Huddle, where we help you master the discipline of thought leadership through strategies and frameworks that I've learned over my 4-decade career. Let's talk about the number 10. 10 is exactly the number of roles on a baseball team. 9 players play in the field, and 1 designated hitter bats in place of the pitcher. And there's a good reason for that. Most pitchers can't hit a 95-mile-per-hour fastball unless they are Shohei Ohtani, the superstar of the Los Angeles Dodgers. Because baseball is my favorite sport, I'm going to talk about 10 thought leadership roles using a baseball analogy. It's not just because I love baseball. It's also because, just like in baseball, there are certain roles on a thought leadership team that are more important than others. And what that means for you, the head of thought leadership, is that you must have highly competent people in your most important roles. And if you don't, the competence of the rest of your staff won't matter very much. Please also note this. I'm not saying you need only 10 people on your team, including yourself, of course. B2B companies that want to power themselves in the marketplace on the back of thought leadership may need more than 10 people. Consulting and IT services leader Accenture has 300 people alone in thought leadership, and it has many more than that in corporate marketing. Conversely, if your thought leadership budget can only afford, say, 5 people on the team, you'll need to give them multiple roles and/or shift a lot of the work to outside contractors. These roles, like the 10 players on a baseball team, represent the minimum number of roles that a company will need to compete on the basis of thought leadership. 9 people are in the baseball equivalent of skill positions, and 1 who's an overseer, the thought leadership chief. I'll organize these 9 roles into 3 overarching skill sets. The first is developing powerful ideas. The second is packaging those ideas. And the third is attracting the right audience to the ideas. I'll briefly describe the key roles within each of these 3 areas, why they are important, and the skills that you need to execute them. The first one is Big Idea Researcher. This is the most important role in a thought leadership group. The reason is that the success of a company's thought leadership program ultimately hinges on the breakthrough ideas it creates about some acute problems in the world and superior ways to solve them. This role is the equivalent of a research scientist in a pharmaceutical company, the people who are in charge of creating blockbuster new drugs. The Big Idea Researcher in a professional services firm has a similar impact. Now, having said that, I'm not diminishing the role of marketers who must get ideas in front of people who are going to write about it, or the skills of the business developer who must sell the service that the big idea represents. The core skill requirements of the Big Idea Researcher are mastering qualitative and quantitative research methods. Qualitative to collect and connect the best practices on a topic at hand, and quantitative to gauge the extent of a problem that a topic focuses on. More specifically, outstanding Big Idea researchers know how to design research studies. They know how to define a topic so that the research isn't too broad, which means the findings will become superficial, or too narrowly. They will also know how to formulate the initial hypotheses about some topic that are going to be proved or disproved through the data that comes in, especially through the case study interviews of companies that reveal best practices and worst practices on the topic at hand. And the big idea researcher's job is then to help determine the most important finding, the big prescription. That becomes the big idea, the big aha that the marketplace will notice. These skills, as you might imagine, are hard to find. In a 2025 study we did on thought leadership practices in the global IT services industry, strategic ideation was the skill that the best firms at thought leadership said they needed to improve the most. We define this as developing unique, forward-thinking perspectives on an issue at hand. And when we asked them which skill was most important for program success, the highest percentage of these firms said it was research design and analysis. Now I'm on to the second skill, narrative developer, also known as idea developer or argument crafter. This role is distinct from the big idea researcher. Yes, big idea research people also tend to be good narrative developers, but B2B companies need excellent narrative developers, not just to craft messages for their research findings, but also to craft the messaging of their non-research-based content. The people who create thought leadership content with the company's experts, whether it's the consultants in a consulting firm, the lawyers in a law firm, or the architects in an architecture firm, these people must push these experts to think harder, to think more critically, to push their thinking and take what are typically underdeveloped ideas and turn them into robust ideas. The work of the narrative developers is also about structuring those ideas in an order that makes it easy for the audience to grasp. My advice is to start with your audience and the problem you're trying to address for them, and not with the solution to the problem. Too many authors want to jump too quickly to the solution, and that often results in having insufficient evidence that there indeed is a problem at hand and a better way to solve it. Please note that narrative development, constructing an inarguable outline of a problem in the world and a superior way of solving it, is not at all the same as ghostwriting. Ghostwriting is about clearly communicating an argument that may or may not be persuasive. Great ghostwriters are commonplace, often coming from journalism, but great narrative developers are rare at this nascent stage of the thought leadership profession. The third role is one I call AI Case Study Generator. This is the newest role in the thought leadership group, but it's one of growing importance. I mentioned that when I talked about the big idea researcher, that case study research is at the center of thought leadership. Well, people who can use generative AI tools like ChatGPT or like Google Gemini to collect case study data are beginning to gain stature in thought leadership. But in short, from my own use of these generative AI tools, I have found them to be amazing collectors of case study data. These are becoming necessary tools today in thought leadership research for gathering information on case studies, for writing case studies about companies and their initiatives. And these tools can rapidly comb the internet and find in minutes information on best practices and worst practices in gathering case study information, whether that information is from quarterly earnings transcripts, conference presentation transcripts, from white papers, book passages, and so on. Now, of course, you're going to have people who verify the facts and the analysis that comes back to you from generative AI tools. I predict, perhaps too hastily, that one of the largest impacts of generative AI on thought leadership research is going to be to scale case study research, to make the number of case studies in any thought leadership research report go from 3 or 5 to 30 or 50 or 100. Now, while none of this will replace interviewing companies about their practices, I believe AI-generated case studies will become a crucial thought leadership research stream. Now let's walk through 3 core roles of the people who present the ideas of a company's experts visually to persuade the audience to engage with the ideas. Now you may think that books are an exception to this, that books are just merely page after page of prose with very little visual appeal. But I would argue that even the best business books are graphically designed to be laid out and be visually pleasing and consumable. Shorter form thought leadership content also needs to have an engaging, pleasing aesthetic to increase the odds that viewers appreciate the big ideas. Now, the second role under this category of packaging powerful ideas is thought leadership graphic designer. I've come to believe that the graphic presentation of thought leadership content is a special skill, one that is distinct from other graphic design, such as brochure design, advertising design, billboard design, and other content that is designed expressly to sell a product or service. So heavy use of white space, sparse copy that can fit on a single page, photographs of people who came from a modeling agency. None of these graphic elements help experts selling a sophisticated audience on a complex solution to a complex problem. The graphic skills used to design great advertising, great brochures, great billboards, they're better suited for selling solutions to simpler problems. Soap, travel destinations, cars. What suits thought leadership content much better is lots of text mixed with graphics that enhance the meaning of the text, far better than that text or prose can do alone. That includes charts and graphs of trends, 2x2 tables or frameworks that pull out important information, and even illustrations that give an artist's touch to humanize an otherwise boring topic. It could include photographs of real scenes that depict the organizational impact of a business problem. For example, in an article on what e-commerce has done to Main Street America, showing pictures of shuttered malls and Main Street businesses. So the second role under this second set of skills of packaging big ideas is one I call the concept and data visualizer. If the thought leadership graphic designer's task is to create a visual aesthetic and environment for a B2B's content to be seen as authoritative, the concept and data visualizer's role is more concept and graphic specific. It means working within the larger graphic style while also taking the company's key ideas and making them easier to comprehend. So interactive charts, so-called scrollytelling graphics that unveil images and videos and text, and other techniques that can be done online, but not in print. These are newer mediums that concept and data visualizers can use to ply their trade. And those who can turn one-dimensional frameworks into multi-dimensional frameworks is the ultimate prize here. Now, the third role under this category of big idea packager is one I call intriguing podcast producer. Now, podcasting is a relatively new marketing channel for thought leadership. And yes, podcasts are another outlet for a firm's thought leaders, just like its publications and webinars and seminars and books. But why do I put podcast production under the packaging category? Because I view the main role of thought leadership podcasts as humanizing a firm's thought leaders. And what I mean by humanizing a firm's thought leaders, I mean making them approachable and palatable to a target audience. Not just smart. That's what their words do. That makes podcasts a packaging role, in my estimation, not a content development role. Podcasts are the closest thing to being in the room with an expert and what it might be like to bring the audience into the expert's organization. Still, in a world where it's harder than ever to keep executive attention, a thought leadership podcast cannot be two talking heads. It can't be, in effect, 40 minutes of an author reading his article. Podcast producers must help company experts be seen and heard for their ideas, but they also need to keep the audience engaged by what they see or hear. And this requires podcasters who know how to use the many audiovisual tools that bring discussions to life. Provocative images and videos, immersive sound effects and music, transitions into new sections that explain new concepts, and more. So now I'm going to talk about the third set of roles for the winning thought leadership team, a set of roles that I refer to as attracting big audiences to powerful ideas. So you can create big ideas and package them well for enjoyable consumption, but if your target audience isn't consuming the ideas in sufficient quantity, your thought leadership group is going to fail. You will have built an expensive content development and packaging machine that isn't pulling its weight. Without skilled thought leadership marketing professionals to help you attract the audience to your great ideas, thought leadership becomes an academic exercise. Now, that would be a shame because building a big idea generation machine and having talented artists and other people to package your ideas is immensely difficult. So you can't just stop at creating and packaging big ideas. You also have to build a competent thought leadership marketing capability. Here are the three roles that are essential in this area. The first is what I call audience attractor. The audience attractor has several jobs. The first is to help a B2B firm to find the audience that needs to hear each big idea. And that audience can vary depending on the idea. That audience includes the people within client organizations who own the problem an idea addresses. It could include market influencers like the press and influential bloggers and Wall Street analysts and channel partners. And the contact details of this person is important for the audience attractor to gather. Now, the second core job of the audience attractor is planning, marketing, and sales campaigns that bring the audience to the big idea content. I wrote about this in my book, Competing on Thought Leadership, 4 years ago, what I called the ripples in the pond approach to thought leadership marketing. Ripples in the pond, meaning throwing a big idea is like throwing a big rock into a lake. Getting the ripples to keep going requires knowing exactly which mix of earned, owned, paid, and shared media to use. The audience attractor's role here is to plan that sales and marketing campaign to get the ripples going in the pond. Now, the second key role in this area of attracting an audience to your big ideas is one I call the event expert. A key piece of the marketing mix for selling high-priced expertise typically requires clients to hear you out in a room of their peers. Sounds like a jury of their peers, and in some ways it is. You must argue your case to prospective clients in the court of a marketing event, a seminar, conference, presentation, and so on. It helps to have clients presenting how you help them and have other clients in the room who can say nice things about you when your fellow attendees ask them about you. And whether for an in-person or online marketing event, a winning thought leadership team needs an event expert. They need someone charged with getting the company's experts visually in front of the potential clients. That allows prospects to kick the tires, so to say, of your company's experts and to mingle with other clients of yours who have similar business issues. The most important skills for event experts are choosing the venue, creating the overarching topic of each event, choosing and helping good presenters to deliver good presentations, allowing time for networking at the event so your clients can talk to the prospects about you, and of course to market the event, to put people in seats. Your event expert is then responsible for the follow-up after an event, giving the attendees a summary of the content and your expert's contact information. The third skill under this attracting audiences to your big ideas is what I call media maven. This is a specialist public relations role, specialist in that it takes unique PR skills to do it well. The core skill of the media maven is the ability to convince media people to write about a complex problem that your experts solve. I use the term media in a more expansive way than it's usually used. I'm including reporters and editors from the business and general press, both old media, such as Fortune, Forbes, Bloomberg Businessweek, Wall Street Journal, Financial Times, and the newer digital publications. I'm also including the hundreds of influencers, bloggers, and social media stars who have cropped up in just about every industry. The media maven must keep apprised of all of these people and know what appeals to them. Now we'll talk about the 10th skill, Thought Leadership Manager. The 9 roles are the foundation of a winning thought leadership group. With energetic, talented, and collaborative people in those 9 roles, great things are destined to happen. Big ideas created, packaged well, gain traction in the marketplace. But to accomplish that, you need a 10th person who's going to lead this group, person who acts as the baseball manager on a baseball team. The thought leadership manager must love managing creative, analytical people. He or she must be able to recognize great thought leadership content and not so great thought leadership content that needs improvement. And the thought leadership manager must institute rigorous research processes, how to design studies, how to gather data, how to analyze the data. They also need researchers who follow a structure in communicating the research findings, a narrative structure that makes it easy for the audience to grasp the ideas. In fact, we teach a whole course on this. What if your company can't afford to put people in these 10 roles? What do you do? Well, the answer, I think, is simple. You combine the roles. For example, let's say you have only 5 people. The thought leadership chief or manager could double as a big idea thought leadership researcher. The event expert and media maven's role could be combined. You could also weave into that the audience attractor's role. However, it would be difficult for one person to excel at those 3 roles if event marketing is a big piece of your thought leadership marketing mix. Even if your company has the budget to fill All of these roles, you will likely find it difficult to fill them with highly skilled individuals. The thought leadership profession is relatively new, even if it has been practiced for 60 years at places like McKinsey and Boston Consulting Group. If your company right now isn't willing to pay what it's going to take to get high-quality talent in each of the 10 roles, you will have to recruit raw, unproven talent, and then, of course, mold it. That will require coaching and training these people and having them learn from real experience. Putting the right people in these positions will accelerate your company's thought leadership progress. It's going to give you a winning thought leadership team. And that's a big competitive moat that will separate you from competitors who have either an incomplete team or a complete team with no stars. I call that a home run.